Hello and welcome to the session in which we would look at additional CIS controls. In the prior sessions, we looked at the first 9 controls. In this session, we would look at control 10, 11, and 12, which are control 10, malware defenses, number 11, data recovery capability, and control 12, network infrastructure management. For each control, I will explain the purpose of it, what does it entails, and what you should know. Then we would look at actual safeguards that the CIS actually recommend. Let's go ahead and get started by looking at malware defenses. Before we proceed any further, I have a public announcement about my company, farhatlectures.com. Farhat Accounting Lectures is a supplemental educational tool that's going to help you with your CPA exam preparation as well as your accounting courses. My CPA material is aligned with your CPA review course such as Becker, Roger, Wiley, Gleam, Miles. My accounting courses are aligned with your accounting courses broken down by chapter and topics. My resources consist of lectures, multiple choice questions, true-false questions, as well as exercises. Go ahead, start your free trial today. So what are malware defenses? What is this control? Well, this control is designed to prevent or control the installation of what? The installation of malicious application, installation, spread, or execution of bad applications, bad software, code, or script on the company's assets. Now, when we say malicious software, what would that include? That would include viruses, Trojan horses, anything that poses significant online threat. Now, if you don't know what a virus is specifically, we're going to have a whole session about viruses and Trojan horses as we are learning about information systems and control. What you need to know now is Control 10 try to prevent those from occurring. And what happens when you have a virus or a Trojan horse? Well, they may steal credentials, they may steal customer data, they may identify further network targets to attack other targets, or they might encrypt and destroy information. Bad stuff. Now, modern malware is constantly evolving, and now they're using machine learning to enhance its potential threat. It's a threat. How? Now what they do, they look for indicators to compromise your account. Therefore, you have to be always on the lookout to prevent those attacks. Now, malware infiltrate enterprise through certain places, through vulnerabilities. Those vulnerabilities could be found in devices, your computer, web pages, emails, cloud and mobile services, removable media, exploiting errors, users' errors like unsafe clicking or software installation. That's how they try to go into your system. And they are designed to do what? To evade or neutralize security measures. So they'll try to go around what defenses you have. So malware defenses, what you have needs to be automated, always live, quick updates, automated updates. You don't need a person to update. It updates on every 24 hours or every 12 hours. An integration with processes like vulnerability management, which we talked about in the prior session. Always looking for trouble, try to neutralize the trouble before it happened. An incident response covering all entry points to an asset to detect, contain, or halt malicious activities. So it's a combined effort. You don't want to only block them or identify them. CIS Control emphasizes central log collection for alerting. So you want to collect this information in one place and alert everyone. Identify it as soon as possible and create a response. As attackers adopt something we call living of the land. What is living of the land? It's using your actual tools, your actual software, your actual hardware to take over your system to harm you, using existing tools in the target environment to avoid detection. This way, you don't know that they exist because now they're becoming part of your system. So activating logging per CIS Control 8, which we'll talk about, greatly helps enterprise in tracking and understanding security events. So if you keep on reviewing your logs, see what's happening, analyzing your logs, you may identify them because sometimes what they do, they are living off the land. It means they are part of your system and you're not aware of it because they kind of camouflage themselves. They're using your own software. But if you analyze your logs, you'll be able to identify them. Let's take a look at few safeguards from the real world. For Control 10, we have 10-1, deploy and maintain anti-malware software. Obviously, everyone will have to do that, whether you're a small, medium, or large company, IG1, IG2, or IG3. Configure automatic anti-ware signature update. Same thing. All companies have to have that. That's the minimum. Disable auto-run and autoplay for removable media. Well, if it's a removable media, don't let it autoplay or auto-run because it might introduce something to your system. So the first three are common to everyone. 4, 5, and 6 safeguards control 4, 5, and 6 are for IG2 and IG3. Configure automatic anti-malware scanning and removable media. Automatically configure those. Enable anti-exploitation features. Again, you have to have more resources to have those. Centrally manage anti-malware software. This way, make sure everyone having the protection on their system. Use behavior-based anti-malware software. And this is basically advanced. Remember I told you malware is changing. It's basically learning, using machine learning. You also want to use behavior-based anti-malware software. So before they attack, you want to be able to detect, like based on their behavior. Like when you go to the airport, if security is suspecting someone is acting nervously, they will question them because, well, these are indicators that this individual might do something bad. Same thing with malware. You want to use behavior-based. Like if someone is going into the system and they're having unusual activities, although they're still legitimate at this point, you want to start to monitoring them. And this will be IG2 and IG3 companies. Let's take a look at Control 11, which deals with data recovery. What is that? That's establishing and maintaining data recovery practices sufficient to do what? To restore in-scope enterprise asset. Basically, in case something happened to our data, we can recover it and we can keep on going in case we need to do this recovery. Now, why do we have to do this? Well, when do we lose our data? Maybe we could be under a cyber attack where they deleted the data or take it as ransom. They want you to pay for it. Well, in the cybersecurity triad, the CIA, which stands C for confidential, I for integrity, and A for availability, what they say data availability can be more crucial than confidentiality. They're both important, but if you don't have the data, how good is confidentiality? As decision-making often relies on accessible, trustworthy data. So we want the data to have integrity, confidentiality, and availability, but if it doesn't exist, it's not good. There's nothing we can do. Data recovery. What do we have to know is when assets are compromised, when we are under attacks, we have to understand that attackers, they alter configuration, they change the configuration, they might add accounts, delete accounts, change setting, introduce malicious software, and they do this obviously discreetly. Those changes, whether they are due to malice, somebody is doing it on purpose, or somebody made a mistake, can involve modifying registry entries, opening ports, disabling security or deleting logs, compromising the system. So what do we have to do? Backup. Recent backup or mirrors are vitals for restoring enterprise asset and data to a secured state. So if we have our data always up to date and something happened, we can go back to the previous day and start fresh. That's why backup or mirrors, basically mirroring means you have the same information somewhere else, mirroring your database or mirroring all your information, it's not only your database, is important because you can restore your data and keep on working with the secured data so you can go back and recover. That's important too because there's a surge in ransomware. What's ransomware? Well, they take over your computer, they take over your system, and they will not release it until you pay a fee. And this is happening often, especially with banks, financial institution. You don't hear about it because when it happens, the bank, the financial institution don't want you to know about it. They want to pay it. And if they're not required to report it, they just, hide it. Why? Because it gives you a bad reputation. You're going to lose reputation, business customer trust, so on and so forth. So with the surge of this, the surge in ransomware impact businesses by encrypting data from ransom. Basically, I have the key. You pay me, I will decrypt the data and give it back to you. You have to pay me in Bitcoin. No one would know who I am. And they extort businesses with the threat of publicizing sensitive data. Sometimes they'll tell you, if you don't pay, I'll publish this data to the public, which has sensitive customer information, gives you exposure. Now, here recent backup is important, but they don't prevent data exposure. So the backup, it's not gonna help you from ransomware, but in case that happens, let's assume they're not gonna give it back to you. That's fine. You might be able to kind of let it go and start from fresh. Or the data that you have is good because you back it up before they took over. So adhering to CIS controls can mitigate ransomware risk by addressing common exploits through enhanced cybersecurity, cyber hygiene. So yes, CIS will help with ransomware, but data recovery is the kind of, in case that happen, you have the data. Data recovery procedures outlined in CIS 3, because we talked about data, should specify backup protocols considering data sensitivity, retention needs, guiding for the development of backup frequency and types. And we talked about data in CIS 3. Backup should be done quarterly, and when new backup methods are adopted, a team should test and verify random backup samples on a regular basis. The company should test their backup to make sure it's indeed backing up. Think about when you think you saved something and you did not really save it. So you want to make sure the operating system, the application, everything is working properly and the data is indeed saved. So you want to test it yourself in a test environment to make sure it's working as expected. So if malware unfortunately strikes, restoration should utilize the backup from before the initial infection. So you have to see when did the infection happen and backup from that point backward. Why? Because you want to start clean. Any changes that they make, well, those are not legitimate changes. You want to start from the initial infection point. Let's take a look at some safeguards from the actual literature. We have basically 5 sub-controls. Establish and maintain a data recovery process. And you have to have that whether you're a small, medium, or large company, IG1, IG2, or IG3. Perform automated backup. We should always perform automated backup. For example, all my files are on Google Drive, OneDrive, and they update automatically. Protect recovery data. You want to make sure it's protected. Don't keep the data in the same building. It's better to have it in the cloud, because if it's in the same building where the servers are, in case of fire, then you lose the building, you lose the servers, and you lose the data. So make sure you back them up in another location. Establish and maintain an isolated instance of recovery data. That's also applied to all 3. Establish and maintain isolated instance of recovery data. Example would include version controlling backup destination through offline, cloud, or offsite system services, which protect your recovery data, help with control 3. Test recovery data. Well, that's IG2, IG3 when you have more resources, and if you can do it as IG1, why not? Before you kind of say it's good, test backup recovery quarterly, more frequently, for a sampling of in-scope enterprise assets. Let's take a look at Control 12. Control 12 deals with network infrastructure management. And network is where people or attackers try to get you through the network. So the goal is to establish, execute, and diligently oversee, which is monitor, network devices with the aim of stopping attackers by safeguarding potential weak spots in your network services and access point. Here we're talking about the network, because through the port, through the network, hackers get to you. Attackers, cybersecurity attacks. So securing network infrastructure include devices like gateways, firewalls, and routers, and that's crucial for defense against attacks. And we're going to have a whole session about network itself. But basically what we're saying here is you have to protect your network, including your access points, especially your access points, your port. Network security requires ongoing reassessment of architecture, because your architecture could change, could be out of date, your configuration and access due to its dynamic nature. It's constantly changing. Default network devices configuration prioritize simplicity. So when they give you this the network, they might have simple configuration. Well, because they want you to install it real easily. And this, if you don't change the default configuration, this would lead to vulnerabilities. For one thing, it's weak, it's simple. 2, often hackers know those default network settings. It will open ports. Ports is where the people can get in, can get into your data, your network, your server, change default password, change outdated protocols, and any unnecessary softwares, because attackers try to exploit these weaknesses and inconsistencies in firewalls, routers, and switches to breach the defenses. So your network should be protected. Access network, redirect traffic, and intercept data, and you don't want any of those. They also can exploit configuration that weaken over time due to the business-driven exceptions, which are often inadequately analyzed for security risk and may persist beyond their usefulness. So also configuration, you have to do what's we called harden them on regular basis, hardening the configuration, changing the configuration. As your business need changes, you want to change those because the threat is constantly changing. What else do we need to know about this? Enterprise must maintain updated network documentation and architecture diagram because people leave the company. So if we have a new network engineer, they know how to read this. Ensure key component have vendor support for updates and replace or isolate end-of-life elements. Simply put, you have to have an 800 number for your support, wherever you purchase that network from, in case you need support, update, patching. You want to make sure you have this information readily available. This has to be complemented by a comprehensive account management and access control. You want to make sure also you're maintaining your account management, having access control. Also, you want to maintain protocol-based administration with strong authentication, like MFA for PAM. And what's MFA for PAM? I'm sure you heard this word MFA, or you're going to hear it so many different times. Multi-factor authentication for privileged access management, people who have privileged access, like administrator, using dedicated devices or out-of-band network. So you want to make sure you are protected. So in case somebody stole the password from these privileged access accounts, they still need the secondary number or secondary code to access. A company can use commercial tools in what? So they would help in assessing network filtering rules for consistency, making sure we are constantly applying the rules and who should get in and who should not. We could also offering automated checks for potential errors or conflict and access control lists. So we could use commercial software, some sort of a service that could help us with this, that could permit unintended network access. These tools should be used following significant update to firewalls, rules, or other filtering method. So they should make sure these tools should be used following significant updates. So because when we start with a new update to the firewall, things are changing. We want to make sure it's working properly. Therefore, we have to kind of go back, test, filter, check for potential errors or conflict. Let's take a look at some safeguards from the real world. For Control 12, ensure network infrastructure is up to date. All companies will have to do that. IG1, IG2, and IG3. But notice that's the only thing that belongs to all of them. Then everything else belongs to IG2 and IG3. Let's see what's belong to IG3. Kind of, this is where you need the most protection. Establish and maintain dedicated computing resources for all administrative work. Well, not all companies can do that. If you can do that, why not? If you can dedicate computing resources for administrative work. Then we have in between some controls that are best practices for IG2 and IG3. Establish and maintain a secure network architecture. Why not? Why should not be in IG1 if you can do that? Securely manage network infrastructure. Establish and maintain architectural diagram. Centralized network authentication, authorization, and auditing, the AAA, use of secure network management and communication tools, so on and so forth. So just going to give you an idea what is expected or what are the recommendation or best practices by the Center for Internet Security. Let's take a look at this multiple choice question from Farhat lecture. When dealing with a malware attack, why is it important to use a backup that predate the original infection? So what we're saying is this: when you have a malware attack, you gotta find out what is the point of infection. When did that infection happen? And use the data that preceded this node. For what reason? Why do we do that? Is it to avoid legal issues? Is it to ensure data integrity? Is it because newer data is irrelevant? Well, I can take out what C, because newer data is not irrelevant. Newer data could be relevant, but relevancy has nothing to do with it. To maintain customer trust, well, well, not necessary to maintain customer trust, but it's good to maintain customer trust. So why do we do that? Is it to avoid legal issues? Well, yes, we want to avoid legal issues and maintain customer trust, but that's not the primary reason. That's not the primary reason, definitely. Why not? Because when we want to back up the data, we want the data that we are backing up to be correct, to be complete, to have integrity, to ensure integrity. That's the purpose why we restore the data from the infectious point, anything that preceded this infectious point. So using a pre-infection backup is crucial to restore a system to a state before the compromise, before the attack happened, ensuring the data and the system are clean. It means the data is good, has integrity. Avoiding legal issues and maintaining customer trust, they're indirect benefit, but not the primary reason. Knower data is not irrelevant. It might be compromised or lost in the event of the attack. That's why highlighting the need for a comprehensive backup strategies, but that's not the primary reason why we restore the data from the pre-infection backup, from the time it preceded the attack. What should you do now? Go to Farhat Lectures, look at additional MCQs that's going to help you prepare for the CPA exam. Invest in yourself. Your CPA exam is 20, 30-year investment in your career. Don't shortchange yourself. Study hard, good luck, and of course, stay safe.